Welcome back, Seekers. If you have not completed the tattva gazing exercises with all the elements while doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram or the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram, depending on the time of day, before each gazing session, we recommend that you get caught up with this. These exercises will not only help you in building a strong aura and activating your power, but will also sharpen your creative visualization abilities and make this work of manifestation much easier. If you have completed the tattvas, start again with the earth element and work through each of the elements again. You may also alternate each element if that intuitively feels better. That is, earth one day, water the next, then air, then fire, and cycle back. If you have noticed that some elements are quite strongly active within you, then you may focus on the ones that are weaker instead. For example, if you are a highly energetic individual with a lot of fiery energy, passion, and a tendency to burn up, you would be well advised to focus on the more balancing elements. For example, water, which will increase the more intuitive, emotional, serene qualities within you, or perhaps earth, which will be more grounding and calming. For another example, if you are air-dominated, that is a bit daydreamy, stuck in your mind, very busy thoughts or anxiety, then a focus on earth or water will become more grounding and more emotionally enriching. We will, in the future, do more extensive work on the elements, but for now, we are giving you what is enough to establish a foundation for your practice. Do not neglect these things. If you are unfamiliar with that material or need to refresh, please find the links in the description below. In this next part of the Occult Classic by Ophiel, The Art and Practice of Getting Material Things Through Creative Visualization, we will discuss the sixth occult law of manifestation. As you know, we live in the earth plane, which is a realm of duality. Duality meaning that everything has its opposite side. We see this everywhere in our world: joy and sadness, love and hate, wealth and poverty, and so on. Duality and polarity are necessary features of this physical plane existence. But instead of philosophy, let's focus on how this practically affects us in our work here. So how do we manifest what we want without activating its opposite? Ophiel explains this in the Law of Binding.
Occult Law number 6. Law of Binding. In magical operations of all kinds, there are always two kinds of forces involved. Actually, any kind of an operation, any action of any kind, physical or inner plane magical, involves two kinds of forces. Or, to say it another way to make it as clear as possible, any and every force in our physical cosmos is really a double acting force. Every force is dual in nature, always has been dual, and could exist in no other form than dual. There is not a thing in the physical universe that does not have two sides to it. Even God has two sides to him. However, in our physical life, we use both sides of things so naturally that we have completely lost sight of the other side of the things we use. Do you ever stop to think that every time you cover yourself with bedclothes, you are using one side only, and that there is another side to the bedclothes? Could the sheet exist without the other side, the side you do not use? Not too good an illustration, but it will do to enable you to think about it and to keep the concept as simple as possible. Here is a different illustration. Do you realize that every time you drive your automobile forward, you are exerting an equal force backward? If you will study some physics about the laws of motion, you will find this is true. So again I say, when we use a physical plane force, we do not use only one side of the force or only one aspect of the force, but we use both sides of the force at once. As in the simple illustration of the bedsheet and the more complex operation of the automobile, we must use both aspects of a force, or we can't use it at all. In fact, a force could not exist, even on the inner planes, if it did not have two sides to it. However, in the use of inner plane forces to accomplish something on the physical plane, we want to use only one aspect of the force and not both aspects. And the reason for this is one aspect of a force will bring a thing to use, and the other aspect of a force will take it away. Or to say it in another way, a force can bring something to us, and the same force can take it away. It follows naturally then that if we want a certain thing, then the aspect of the force we want is the aspect that will bring the thing to us. Therefore, it is imperative in all magic works and in all kinds of other works that you must recognize the existence of the other side of the force that you are invoking. Remember, when you contact a force, you contact both sides of it at once and at the same time, and both sides have equal power. It is the lack of knowledge about this secret fact that causes so much trouble in the magical workings of would-be magicians. Either your magical operation works like mad, I mean literally, or does not work at all. Therefore, when you want to use a force to accomplish a certain kind of work, you must use the side of the force that you need to accomplish the work that you want to do, be it constructive or destructive, and bind the other side of the force that you are using so it will not function in the operation you are performing. If you do not bind up the one side of the force that you are using, the side that you do not want to operate, then in any particular operation you perform, you will contact both sides of the force at once, and they will nicely cancel each other out. Or, to enable you to understand it better, I will put it in a little different way. When you start a magical operation without a binding, you can, and often do, use the aspect of the force that you want to use. But as time goes on, the one-sided use will build up a strain or pressure, and this pressure will, sooner or later, bring the opposing force, now concentrated by the removed dilution of its balancing opposite, back into operation, with the results, harmless enough when said this way, of completely neutralizing all the previously done work and bringing back all conditions, physical and otherwise, to the same condition prevailing before the magical work started, or to say, in another way, make a hash out of the whole thing. A way to see this quick reversal in action is to watch the people at racetracks. A man will win a large sum of money, which was done by successfully invoking pressure on inner plane forces. Even if it was done ignorantly, the power of the will, even of an ignorant man, is very great at times. And then a few minutes later, the man will lose all that he won. The force gave, and the force took away. If you will look carefully, you will see this cycle repeated time and time again in the history of nations in the world as far back as you care to go. You can see it operating in our daily lives every day, in all our little disappointments and breakdowns in daily living. So now that you know about the occult law of binding, what must you do to make your magical operations come out right? The operation of the mental magic work you will be doing by using the art of creative visualization. as given in this book, to set up a limit on the extent of each operation you perform will have the same effect as a binding of the opposite force in this case. If the work you are attempting to do does not involve too great a dislocation of your surroundings, if your sphere of availability is ready to supply you with what you are working for, setting a sensible limit on the size of the operations you are conducting will be sufficient for all normal purposes. If you are creatively visualizing for something really big, or if you are attempting real magical work of a big kind, it will be absolutely necessary for you to bind the opposing dual force. I suggest that for a long time you confine yourself to the type of specialized operations that I have given you so far, going one step at a time and gaining slowly what you want. I can tell you truly that if you get too large a thing by these creative visualization methods, unless you protect yourself by a binding, you are apt to lose it all back again when the reaction takes place. Build up your life by the slower, careful, well thought out methods I have given you, one step at a time, and you can expect to hold on to your gains and increase and use them in the right way. Gaining a thing through creative visualization, not too large a thing as to cause the dislocation as aforesaid. And starting to use the thing is another form of binding.
As Ophiel explains, at this stage, if you are applying the law of the sphere of availability and the law of limitation, then you are already well within the law of binding. Techniques to bind the opposite side of the force would apply to a very great manifestation, so outside of your current sphere of availability that it would cause a dislocation of reality. As your occult and magical studies continue, more detail will be given on these kinds of rituals. Right now, you have everything you need to start manifesting your goals. Please like and subscribe to keep the channel going. And in the meantime, arise and awaken.